Buy you guys a drink? Guess not.
Patrick Swayze is
Dalton.
I thought you'd be bigger.
Opinions vary.
When he's around, anything can happen.
How does a guy like you end up a bouncer?
Just lucky, I guess.
And usually does.
If somebody gets in your face, I want you to be nice. Don't be rude. Ask him to walk, but be nice. Help this gentleman to the door. Until it's time to not be nice.
So says the fighting philosopher.
He may be hard to handle.
If I keep talking, you're gonna go on thinking I'm a nice guy.
I know you're not a nice guy.
But he's easy to like.
What's the matter, Dalton? Don't you like women?
The worst I ever had was wonderful.
He's not what you'd expect.
I thought you'd be bigger.
But there's one thing you can count on. He's the best friend a good time ever had.
You guys tired?
Doc, I'll get all the sleep I need when I'm dead. This is my time.
I'm not afraid of him.
I guess you'll be having that fire sale now, all right? Got your hands full, kid.
I just think I'm looking at a dead man.
Patrick Swayze.
For that line of work, I thought you'd be bigger.
Gee, I've never heard that before.
Roadhouse.
All right, how's it going? Welcome to Movie Night Extravaganza, and we're here with a Dudes Rock panel talking about Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze, bar life, bouncers. I'm here as always with J. Andrew World with the hair like Sam Elliott. You do kind of have that hair going on.
Kinda, but I always thought you'd be bigger.
That's what she said.
Oh,
get it out of your systems, boys.
See, that would have been a perfect line when they're banging up against the wall for her to be like, I thought you'd be bigger. All right, Conan Neutron is here. Platonic Reversal, Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. You know, always killing it. We're double streaming to Conan's Twitch account, which you know, if you're not following that one, you should too, because Platonic Reversal has just started streaming from there too.
Running a train on Twitch.
Yeah, very recent. Right now, all 10 of my Twitch followers are delighted to hear this. But yeah.
All right. You know, the left's most canceled podcaster, Kenzo Shibata,
okay.
Chicago's most dangerous podcaster.
And I gotta show you guys this. Pain.
Yeah, you got the
pain don't hurt.
Damn.
Commitment to the bit.
I mean, I was meaning to do this for a while, and then I have to do it before the stream.
I was gonna say it's an honor to the show that you chose to do it in time for the stream. You know,
yeah, I don't think anybody's tattooed themselves for a show that I've been on, so this is kind of awesome.
You guys
can now get
remember
into any Roadhouse show, just like Rocket from the Crypt now.
Do you guys remember when someone at one point got a Michael Brooks tattoo? They got Michael Brooks on them, but it was when he was still alive. So he got the opportunity to look at like someone's, and he was like, oh, I wish you hadn't done that, but like it's pretty cool to get that.
I mentioned that bit with Chris Murphy, right? That Rock from the Crypt had that thing. If you get the tattoo, you get into the shows for free, but they eventually cut that out because too many people did. It's cool logo.
All right, well, Kenzo kind of overshadowed it, but we have Jake Flores.
Oh, I got a Jake Flores tattoo. Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh, well, you get to listen to my podcast for free if you have a Jake Flores tattoo.
Nice. I don't have to download it off Reddit then.
Host of Pod There America and the Why You Mad Pod. And
what's up, me hoes? That's
See, I
just wanted to
expected
say that. Pretty
I
bad.
expected Andy to do that with his hair like that.
We're all Sam Elliott today, man.
Yeah. Which Sam Elliott are you today? And just take like the panel, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't find it to download it, but the other day there was a someone had a Sam Elliott AI where they got an AI to sound like him and they would just like type stuff in. And
that's pretty fun.
But it was like, but they just put a bunch of like random like Trump, MAGA, something, like they made it like the conservative boomer one of him.
Yeah.
But that's not what that dude is. I mean, that dude like, you know, he's a pretty. It's not like he's exactly, avant leftist or anything, but I mean, he did like commercials for Biden and stuff like that. He's a pretty outspoken, like, you know, old school Democrat.
Boomers love shit like that because they literally can't get the people they like to say the things that they think. Even like,
and when they
he's
can,
alive.
When they can, they're screaming
John
at
Boyd.
a chair.
That's about it. Just John Boyd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they got
few.
they got Clint Eastwood, but he's screaming at a chair at the RNC, and that was like, you know, that was the height of like boomers realizing that they can't really get any celebrities to endorse their politics
because they couldn't hire a Chinese person for him to yell at. They just got a chair. What was that movie, Gran Torino, where he just kills Chinese people or Asian people?
No, he's killing some of the Asians he's killing, but then he has the neighbors, so he's like both white savior and racist guy, you know, like fucking with a bunch of triads. That's like the duality of man, according to Clint Eastwood.
There's a restaurant in Williamsburg here in Brooklyn just called Gran Torino. It's very weird. Big neon sign outside of it.
Was it before or after the movie came out that it opened up?
Long after. Well after it became a meme.
Big fans, I guess. Racist. I don't know.
Yeah. I think.
Puzzling choice.
Maybe it's like a Jekyll and Hyde's restaurant type of thing where you go in and they're all the waiters dressed like Clint Eastwood and he calls you all the slurs and stuff.
Well, originally it was probably called like Dirty Harry's, but you know, they got a little bit that had the health inspectors coming in a little bit too much.
Right.
I used to have a bar called Slurs. That's not true.
A good name for a bar, though.
I think James Woods is a very online dude who's like kind of on the Trump train, right?
He blocked me before I gave up my Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Well, the James Woods thing is he's a lot like one of his like sleazy pimp characters, like in Casino. You know what I mean? Like he plays her fucking like her boyfriend that she's like Lester or whatever. He plays him so well, and it's like, yeah, that's what this guy's definitely like in real life. And that's why his politics are so fucking weird and creepy. Like,
it's not like, Mr. Thespian. How can I go on without a finger? It's called acting.
Acting. Anyway, so we covered all that. Is there anything left on the show, or are we going to close it out?
Nope, that's it. All right.
Yeah, we just got to work.
That's it. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. So, Roadhouse. Let's talk about it. Patrick Swayze. You know, I wish he was still here. That, you know, he had putting it into context, I guess, and I think this movie should be put into year pop culture context, because it's 2 years after Dirty Dancing comes out, and you know, Patrick Swayze's given up his dancing career to become an actor and really wants to embrace the acting life, but nobody takes him seriously, and it's this whole struggle for him on his ranch. And you know, so he ends up trying to get involved in movies, and then finally Dirty Dancing becomes a success. But it's a movie that you know, he's a dancer. So you know, so he's kind of stuck in this space where even when he's acting, even when he's like at his most popular, he's still a dancer on screen. So enter Roadhouse as like the first action movie that, you know, anyone will accept Patrick Swayze as.
Take it back. He was in Steel Dawn, where he was a post-apocalyptic future movie that came out, I think, a year or two before Roadhouse did. So it was I think it was a flop, if I remember correctly. I don't have my box office numbers. I'm not like Jer, you know, with pulling out IMDb facts about obscure Patrick Swayze movies, but he was in the milieu, so this wasn't completely out of the blue at the time.
Yeah, well, it's also Rowdy Harrington, the director. It's also his first
Rowdy.
I think it's his second movie, his first studio movie that's ever come out. And
any relation to Michael Harrington, the socialist?
Yeah, Rowdy Harrington is the founder of the DSA. Actually, a lot of people don't know.
I want that to be true so bad.
the first 5 people in the DSA were really rowdy for the first 30 years of it, and then
they had to bring in the cooler, and that was
Michael Harrington.
Yeah, this is Michael Harrington. Okay,
and then they recruited a bunch of graduate students who get.
The only reason why I know that, Jake, is because I just did a cover of a book about Michael Harrington. So
wild.
I'm gonna say that you had that right at the ready, and I was very surprised. I was like, "Wow."
Yeah, no, it's all because I just did a cover. So
well,
I'm not that smart, y'all.
Wait, that's not really his brother, though.
Isn't it? Do the research.
No,
do your own research.
That's not really his brother, right? It was a joke. I'm losing my mind. Okay.
I don't know if I uncovered the truth of the bit, which happens sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. That's how this show goes.
Okay,
but no, because Michael Harrington's a lot older than Rowdy Harrington was anyway. Michael Harrington was already in his 50s when because he had I forget what the book's called, but he had a book that got really famous, and
The Other America.
The Other America, yeah, exactly. And
Rowdy Harrington wrote that.
Yeah, the DSA was invented by Kit Harington, Jon Snow from the hit series Game of Thrones.
Little known fact. Started young.
Lots of people are talking about it.
We're talking about it more and more.
Yeah, so it's his first movie. Rowdy Harrington, classic DSA story. Worked his way up. From being a gaffer and a lighting expert into being a director, and finally makes a studio film, and it's this. And I feel like it was both praised and panned. I don't think that this is necessarily the most popular movie with the critics when it came out, but it has attained like a form of cult status. Yeah.
It's a bizarre movie, but I think it has because it's fun. Ultimately, it's bizarre. It hardly makes any sense at all as a narrative structure. I guess that's a thing. It's a fun movie. If it wasn't fun, it wouldn't have lasted. It wouldn't be a multi-generational thing where people are like, "Oh, this is great. This is ridiculous, but this is great."
I've been watching a lot of old movies lately, and there is something bizarre about the nature of acting and film, in that it progresses together as one big zeitgeist. And there's this, if you watch movies that are old enough, you just kind of go, wow, people didn't used to know how to act at all. It's weird. It developed, the cameras developed, and then movies kind of got into a little bit more of the the headspace that we're in now. When I was watching this in the context of watching a bunch of other 80s and 90s cult movies like this, I gotta say, Roadhouse, the acting is not bad.
Yeah.
And the lighting and stuff, all the neon and stuff, the camera work, it's not actually a bad film. It's weird and
it's bizarre. Yeah.
I think you're right. Something probably happening in editing or something where me personally, I had to read the plot to kind of get where everything was going, because I was on my phone and stuff. But I've watched this movie and probably never watched it sober, and there's a lot of other factors going on here, but I always lose the thread. 3/4 into the way to the movie, I'm always like, why is there a monster truck now? It goes off the rails.
1989, man. I mean, I was a kid when this movie came out. This was everything, because back then they made rated R movies for 10-year-olds.
Yeah,
and I can't explain this, but because it makes no sense why they would do such a thing. But I guess the cocaine was really good back then. We're not getting the best that the CIA used to send up.
Yeah.
Well, this is 1989. I feel like maybe somebody found the last of their stash, and they're like, listen, the 80s are almost over. We have to edit this shit. Let's do this cocaine right now.
This was the era of the hard PG film. If you took out if you took out the sex and some of the violence in this film, it could have been PG in the 80s.
That's true.
PG got
Well, yeah, that's because
it literally
PG-13
was
wasn't
drugs.
invented for a while. So I
Yeah.
remember, like half of the '80s, there was no PG-13.
It's
But look at-
we're in the
drop
we're
off.
also we're in the era of PG-13 now, right? Like
Yeah.
we were talking
Like
about
real
this
shit.
with Showgirls, when they got the NC-17 rating, like I think PG-13 is really what like directors aspire to. Like they don't want our movies. Our movies can come out on streaming services. Our movies can come out in other contexts. But like movie theater films, they want them to be, as many people as possible coming into it. So we're kind of in the weird era of like PG-13. Like we'll throw a little adult shit in there, but also like every movie has to be made for teenagers.
They must have just realized at some point in producing this that like they weren't gonna get that PG thing, because there's no way to make a movie about bars without there being all of this gratuitous stuff with like sex and drugs and knives and stuff. And so like maybe that's kind of what saved this, because like it doesn't seem like they attempted. Nothing seems like it suffered from a studio note coming in and going, can you stab him in this and not this? Like they fucking went for it, and that's why it's like a shining example of something. This movie is something, and I think you're right to point this out, that it's like a R-rated movie for kids. But it's the reason it's feel like it seems like it's for kids and it seems kind of hokey. It's because the 80s were all about movies that centered around either an occupation or a hobby that somehow saves a town. That was like the formula for every movie.
In every episode of the A-Team.
Yeah, I mean there was like skateboarding movies and then arm wrestling movies and all these different trends, and this one just happens to be a really bizarre like thing to plug into that formula, which is bouncer, which is like not a thing that they present it as if it's like there are bouncers that like mentor other bouncers and stuff like that. Not a thing at all, but it does.
You can call that bouncer, and he can drop everything and just show up in the town and be like, I'm the bouncer too now.
Yeah,
but like the company has not hired him.
And
the company has not.
He just shows up, right?
You know what I mean? Like nobody's hired him to be there. He's just there now, and he's also the bouncer.
They got this,
which that comes back to my main. Oh, sorry, Kenzo. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, instead of closing it down, which would normally what people do, and then reopening it as something else, he was paying what $500 a night to Swayze to fix the bar. Like that part is so hokey and beautiful.
And it's in the middle of like rural Missouri, right? I mean, it's like how much money are you pulling in? Because I know what it's like to try to get paid out by the bar in the night. If the bouncer's getting paid that much, holy shit!
Well, he says he just came into some money. He's like, I just came into some money randomly. I guess somebody died or something. Who knows? And
it's never explained, which is great.
There's a lot of stuff that is left
Harrington
outside.
Died and gave all the money to the bar.
Yeah, he inherited it. There's a lot of stuff that's left completely outside. Maybe got cut out of the film or something like that. But that's a good one. Like, why is this guy starting this bar? Where'd the money come from? There's another thing at the beginning, which most of the details in the beginning of the film do get like third act wrapped up and stuff. Like why? He killed a guy or whatever. But he says like the guy comes to him and says he comes to his bar in New York and he says, "You're the best bouncer in the world," or whatever. I want you to come open my bar. It's in Missouri. And then Dalton goes, "Oh, okay, I'll go there," which is crazy. But then he goes, "I don't fly." And this detail is never explained.
That's right.
He says he
never gets into it.
He says flying is too dangerous, which I mean, objectively a funny line considering like they're like, listen, you're about to see, Patrick Swayze just kick the shit out of a bunch of people. So like it's funny if he like doesn't want to get on an airplane because he's risking his life in every other way. So I think that's the only reason why they included that fact.
They wrote it for Mr. T and they couldn't get him, but they kept the line.
Did they really?
No.
Oh, I was going to say.
But it sounds plausible, right?
That would
because I mean that bar.
I believe it.
The bar is basically the summation of like that Simpsons bit of the "let's fight, them's fighting words" sort of like interaction, right? Where everyone's ready to fight at the drop of a hat, and it's really hilarious because for a number of reasons, and not the least of which is that when you talk about like the plot, like it is basically being like like nonsense. It's amazing to me that nobody knew how bouncers work, yet they wrote a script about like a famous bouncer and his famous bouncer friend who mentored him.
Well, it does seem like they do know how bouncers work because the one fat guy who works for him.
One guy, yeah, the guy that's like played for laughs. Like he's actually
the one that's actually the most accurate summation of a bouncer in the entire movie. Like
I'll give them this.
Bad, man.
They've gotten things worse in films, and I think it probably speaks to the fact that this is about bars, so they maybe did a little bit of research. Although that's giving Hollywood too much credit at this time. I think one thing that happens a lot in the 80s is you have movies like, for example, Punchline. Punchline's a movie about stand-up comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a comic. Everybody who does stand-up comedy loves to watch that film and laugh at it because it's insane that they would make a movie about a thing and clearly not research it. Like, for example, in Punchline, there's scenes where there's like Tom Hanks and Sally Fields doing stand-up and then cut to them after the show in the locker room, having it out and arguing with each other. You know, the locker room that's in the back of a comedy club that we all know. That's not a real thing. That's not there. You watch it and you go, why the fuck you didn't research, right? In this movie, like, people have gotten it worse. All right. I was watching I think it was one of the Friday the 13th movies the other day, and which I think this guy worked on, so maybe this has something to do with this. Whenever people go up to bars in movies, they're always like, give me a beer, which is fine. We all know that's because they can't say brand names and stuff like that, so they say, give me a beer. But then the bartender will hand them like a rocks glass, like a half a glass, like full of beer, or not full all the way. All these things that don't make any sense. Millions of beers get poured all over the fucking country, all over the world every day. Somehow they don't know how to pour a beer. It goes in a pint glass. So I saw one the other day. I'm drinking a beer for this, by the way, because we're talking about Roadhouse. Literally, the guy cracks the beer, and then I can't even show you, like, backwards. He drinks it backwards, which is like not how you drink anything out of a can. It happens all the fucking time. In this movie, it's not that bad.
It's not as pronounced. Yeah.
They're putting their bar towels where they're supposed to be on the right belt loops and stuff, and they're not doing anything ridiculously over actory where they're like washing a glass every scene or whatever. There's some authenticity to it.
You have to assume that a lot of actors that end up being successful were originally working at a bar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, pretty much everybody in The Sopranos, if you look at The Sopranos as a show, was working at a bar that wasn't like a trained actor. So it's like that is one of the few jobs, I feel like, that is one of the few jobs that, like, even if you're like a successful actor, you've probably worked.
But it always seems weird, though. Like, I mean, Jake, have you ever seen a movie, like, I tour, right? And like, same thing. Have you ever seen anyone use a drink ticket in a movie? Because I feel like I almost haven't seen that. And like, that's like a pretty common thing, right?
But like 10-year-olds wouldn't get drink tickets. Come on.
Or just have a tab. Just go, I have a tab. Just put it on my tab. Like, there's I'm always like yelling at the TV, like, how does no one in the room know how this very simple thing happens, you know? And I don't think they get it too bad. I had my eyes out. I was watching for it.
My favorite tab thing is that, like, someone will go to a bar for the first time and they'll be like, put it on my tab. It's like, because I worked at a bar that did have tab, like, you could put it on a tab if they knew you. You know what I mean?
But like regular or something, right?
Yeah. But so you could put it on a tab in that sense. But then it's funny in movies when they do that and it's like the person's first time there. You're like, they kind of just alluded to the fact that this person hasn't been to this bar before.
Yeah.
I love the tab bit from Sarah Silverman, where the guy's obsessed with Tab Cola, and that's what we're talking about, right?
What? And then she makes
End your world, everybody.
Go back to that.
Put a tab on my tab.
I was watching a Norma Ray viewing. It was a DSA movie night thingy, and I ended up sitting with like all the union organizers in the corner, and we're doing this. Like, speaking of Sally Field and Punchline, like, the fucking union organizer goes skinny dipping with the members, which you don't do. Speechifies. He doesn't listen to the workers. He like speechifies them to get them to go and go on strike and whatnot, or form the union. And we're just sitting there laughing and like, that would get you fired. That would get you fired. That's bad organizing work. Like, union organizing movies, Bread and Roses, another one like that, are just fucking awful. Like that in that movie too, like the organizer was sleeping with a member. Like, you don't do that. You know, you're supposed to be almost invisible and hyping up these members, you know, getting their stories and getting them to advocate for themselves. So yeah, the employment movies of the 80s were pretty bunk.
Yeah. And I guess
kind of plays with that line. I mean, I think they do it on purpose and like kind of make it so that, you know, Glenn from Walking Dead, I forget his name, and Sorry to Bother You, kind of has a more prominent role than he would have otherwise. But like, you know, the fact that him and Detroit end up like kind of having a thing, I feel like is literally just to shoehorn him into the plot, but like definitely is not something that would happen if someone actually was going town to town and dedicating their life to union organizing.
I mean, there are scumbag organizers, but they also are very bad at organizing. Like, you know, if you're sleeping around with members, you're causing a lot of drama, and they'll be activists for a little bit, and then, you know, when the dick is not as good, or, you know, they get into conflict.
They pivot to being a gigolo. Right, exactly.
You know, those people don't last very long, or they skip from town to town.
Oh!
Actually,
her words.
Solidarity. Am I right? All right. Yeah, but to that point, like about the authenticity of this movie, the details are not bad, but the overall premise is what's just glaringly weird. This like idea that someone wants to get the best like a cooler in this film is like the boss of all of the other bouncers, of which there are
yes,
like a bunch of bouncers.
It's a team.
Yeah, I remember I've worked. There's like, you got bartenders, barbacks, a door guy
and they fire the main bartender. So like, I mean, they have Keith David in like 2
John
scenes.
Doe from X.
They have Keith David in 2 scenes, post Platoon and post like other big Oliver Stone roles, and somehow he's just in the background and hands somebody like something at one point. But like,
come on,
I guess he was been in a bunch of John Carpenter movies. He's also in a bunch of Oliver Stone movies, like in a row.
Yeah,
like
and he's fantastic, and he just completely underused in this movie.
Yeah,
because I absolutely love him in Dead Presidents, where he's like beating that person with his fake leg. Like, I mean, he's fantastic.
And he's in like 2 scenes, and they just have him. He's like telephone for you or something, and it's like, huh? You really called in the heavy hitters on this one.
Yeah, he didn't beat anybody with a prosthetic or anything.
I love like in the 80s how like John Doe was in a bunch of films, and Lee Ving from Fear. Like, I love. They're always like this kind of film too, like a medium-sized film, but absolutely ridiculous, and they get to like overact.
That's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood meme. God, John Doe, you know.
Yeah, Clue. Come on, Mr. Body.
Mm-hmm.
Classic.
Who can classic role?
So the other thing that I wanted to point out about when Patrick Swayze comes into the bar and is like firing everybody, and he's like, he's like you can't sell drugs on like when you're on the job. Like, we sell alcohol, not drugs. That would never happen. I mean, in the 80s maybe, but every bar that I've hung around with and known the staff at or even like worked at, like, I don't know. That's not like, they don't have that as a staff meeting.
There's kind of a fundamental misunderstanding of what a bouncer even is in the premise of this film. Like, I was just talking about this with somebody the other night. This kind of funny thing going on in New York right now where bars are back. They've been back for a while, and all you have to do is show a Vax card, and then because they check Vaxes at the door and stuff, you don't have to wear masks and stuff, and everybody just kind of parties. It's like fine, right? But I had a friend visiting town, and they were like, how's the Vax thing? Are they stringent? Do they care? And I was telling them, like, look, what is a bouncer, right? What is a door guy? Their job is, they don't actually care if you're vaccinated. We're talking about liability here. Their job is to make sure no one gets in trouble if something happens because you legally check the box by showing them a card. They don't give a fuck whether you're selling drugs or anything, really, as long as they can say, well, we did our best, officer, to make sure that didn't happen, and then they're off the hook for stuff. So the idea that Dalton has this like moral philosophical compass about things like drugs doesn't really make any sense. And it also, here's another thing, it doesn't make it also kind of sucks. I like him in this movie. He's like a lot of fun to watch, but he's kind of a narc, and he narcs on a guy for stealing from the cash register because he's working on behalf of our little small business owner who he thinks is a moral good guy, right? Which I think that sucks. But sure. Okay. That's the premise of this character. Later on, This dude gets into bar fights. He's smashing people through tables, breaking all sorts of equipment in the bar. He doesn't care about the fucking bar's bottom line. It's like absurd.
He also said he fires the original head bouncer guy because he's like, oh, your temperament's wrong. And then the first thing he does is just take the guy's head and smash it into the fucking table.
Yeah, there's a lot of follow what I say, not what I do.
That guy was a wrestler, right? The original head bouncer, the black curly hair.
Wait, was it? Who was that?
I feel like I've definitely seen that guy and stuff before.
I thought he was a football player, but I could be wrong on that one.
Everyone in this movie looks like they're background characters in Streets of Rage or something.
They all have head trauma at this point in their lives if they're still alive.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, those haircuts are head trauma. You know what I'm saying?
Well, look what an average night of this joint is like. You know, I mean, Jesus, it's enough. Like,
I guess so. So what I would say is, I have a defense for why this movie is so weird. It's essentially a Western, and it's a Western coming at the end of the Reagan era, like the Reagan-Bush era, towards the tail end of all of that, when, you know, it seems like governments kind of cut things back to the point where everything's kind of failed. You know what I mean? Like, people don't really have, you know, like the Reagan economy has kind of crashed. It's shown to be bullshit. And they're kind of trying to make a Western without actually including, like, you know, like the local sheriff, which is what he would really be. You know what I mean? Like, the Patrick Swayze character is the same thing that in most Western movies, like the sheriff rides into town.
New sheriff comes into town. Sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
So instead of doing that, they're kind of setting it in the saloon, and they're having him get hired as the guy taking care of the saloon. But instead of taking care of the saloon, he's like, well, I have this moral compass. I went to NYU. You know, I'm a big shot. Let me just try to clean up this whole town now that I've realized that the bar is kind of the centerpiece of town because you know, the guy that owns the town that's bringing JCPenney in or whatever is corrupt and is greedy, and I'm going to be on the side of the small, like the small business owners that are really small business owners. So it's kind of but they've kind of run out of things, right? Like they've run out of, it's not like they can't have a sheriff. It's not like the guy in charge of, you know, it's not like a cop. Like, it doesn't really make sense to have him be a cowboy. So it's kind of like they take away all these different things. Oh, well, let's just have him be a bouncer, and that's at least someone that gets to fuck people up. You know,
well, that's one accurate thing, though. It's like with a philosophy degree from NYU, you probably are working at a bar, and you know that's about it.
Yeah.
two things though, real quickly. One, this is a samurai movie that is trying to be a Western because Westerns don't sell in Japan, and that's what this movie actually is. It's a samurai movie pretending to be a Western, but it's actually not. You know, it's set in modern times in America.
Well, there's lots of a bunch of those samurai movies. A bunch of those samurai movies were just revamped as Westerns, right? Like,
yeah, there's a back and forth.
Yeah,
that dude who was the bouncer, he's still wrestling, and he was born in 1944. Like the motherfucker is still wrestling.
Wow.
His name is Terry Funk.
Oh, Terry.
Oh, okay.
Terry Funk, right? Was that his nickname, Railroad, or something shit like that?
Let's see here. His dad is Dory Funk Sr. His brother's Dory Funk Jr.
Please, Dory Funk Sr. is my father.
It's so funny when people are actually named Funk. It sounds like a made-up name.
Yeah.
Yeah, his whole full name is Terry DeFunk.
DeFunk?
Incredible.
Okay.
Listen, the funk is done. The funk is done. We're going to defunk now.
So is he Italian then? Is the funk Italian?
All right. So having nothing to do with that, let's not forget that the heavy in this, the villain, the one that, you know, the new sheriff / bouncer coming to town is Ben Gazzara, who's a fantastic actor and an actor of some renown and importance, which leads credence to the fact that even though the plot is like, again, as Jake pointed out, like, you know, I've seen this lots of times too, and you know, sometimes under the influence of an adult beverage or two, you know, and it's fine, it still works. You still get all the broad strokes of it, and a lot of it pulls from like hero's journey kind of stuff, but it's just overblown. All of it's completely overblown, including Ben Gazzara's whole deal, which like it does in multiple ways. It tries to show you what a bad guy he is, right? Like in the beginning, what's he doing? He's like driving in the road and like going from the left to the right. He's like, I own this town. I can do what I want. You know, that
he just seemed to be drunk driving. I took that as in the beginning when he's just.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like he feels like he has autonomy to do whatever he wants in this town. And that includes like, you know, pushing everyone around, like laws only like apply to him if he feels like it. I'm going to have lots of huge stuffed beasts in my lair, you know, so on and so on. Like everyone has to do what I say.
Yeah, he's shutting down the recreation center. He's
Right,
the
exactly.
villain.
He's the classic,
in
yeah,
every
80s.
fucking. This, not to get all fucking galaxy brain about it, but the entire time, I mean, you're right. I think this is totally a Western. It's totally a cowboy movie. It works really well because these types of jobs are individualist. It's very gunslingery. You get paid under the table. You have to be an individual. You have to look out for yourselves, but there's a moral compass involved and all this stuff. And that ultimately, the story of like America and the modern world is this thing where the reason these stories resonate so well is because we're trying to make sense of the way society is structured, and the heroes have to be like this like middle class that we were all dreaming that we're a part of. And in order for this all this comes unraveled if you start thinking about like Native Americans and stuff, and like what's really going on in this town and history going far back enough. But if we're living inside of the American dream, the little bubble, then all of these movies make sense because they're a way to separate people that are like, oh, a small business owner, that's good, versus big corporate, no, corporations are bad, because we used to think of those things as like separate from each other and not basically versions of the same thing, which is, if you're left pilled, you kind of get that. But like most people think small business is good,
Yeah.
So
and
that guy,
even people on the left, kind of, it's not left, but like even like liberals that kind of seem like they're going in the right direction a lot of times get stuck on the small business owner thing. So they're like, well, if corporations get, if we focus too much on corporations, small business owners are the things saving us from corporations. Is like, no, small business owners are like the fascists that are getting put front and center by like the Republican Party and by people that really want to do the same things that corporations want to do, like no fucking minimum wage increases, no benefits for workers, all of that, but they can just kind of shove small business owners out there to be like, hey, we can't do that, I can't afford it.
Yeah, the guy that owns.
I'm sorry, I gotta be like, I guess I'm gonna be pushed into like the libtard Democrat asshole, but that's not true for everything. And I know, and I think the difference between 89 and now is that there wasn't the ability to tell individual people's stories in the same way it is and be connected to folks, that you can see like, oh, this person is like, abusing their workers in this way. And, maybe it's like a chain of like 5 coffee shops or whatever. Like, okay, for instance, Collectivo, right? They finally unionized, but Collectivo spent a lot of money bringing in like labor breakers, basically, like more money than probably they should have. And they ostensibly were seen as one of the good guys. They give money to like sustainable farming. They're very engaged with the community, blah, 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 blah. But when it came to organized labor, of course, hey, call in the Pinkertons. Not that bad, but
Yeah, I mean, sure. I have friends that are fucking small business owners. I have friends that are landlords and stuff like that. I mean, these are things that like, it's not an indictment of your individual character, but to tell a story tells something greater than the sum of its parts, right? And so I think the reason that this archetype is happening over and over and over again is because everyone's trying to work through, well, what are these dynamics, good or evil, and this is like a feeble attempt. I think that as long as we're trapped in the phase of history we're in, we're going to just kind of continually be telling these stories that try to explain that somehow the middle class is like heroic and pure in its dynamics, not even in your soul, even, maybe that's a good way of like using metaphorically telling the story or whatever. But like, I mean, not to jump ahead too hard, but at the end of the fucking movie, the town comes together to go like, we collectively don't like this fucking Mr. Burns guy who blew through town, and he's like he's fucking up what we're doing here, which is inherently good. We're in the Bible Belt, we're in Missouri, and we're in like the land of the frontier, the land of prosperity and the American dream. We're like, this is good, this was supposed to happen, we're all supposed to start bars out here, and then that fixes everything, right? A better movie kind of wouldn't be possible, I think. Yeah, it's just a byproduct of the time.
And it is fetishized. That is important to remember. Like this is a perfect example of, but it's also like where are we going to put it? Well, let's put it at Roadhouse. All right, there's a guy that gets some money. It's like, I don't think they thought that hard about it, frankly. I think they were
but of course not. They're artists don't think hard. They just feel. I mean, that's on them. It's fine. I don't think it's a bad movie. I just think that like that's I mean, if you think about this, if you think about stuff this way, every movie looks like this, which is fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't make
You
them
don't get a-
unenjoyable. It just means
You don't get a job as a bouncer and they just pop this in the VHS and say, "Here's your training video." Like it's supposed to be entertaining. But like what I want to say is like Ben Gazzara, his character they found was originally from Chicago. And I think this is my retirement plan is I'm gonna go to some small town and start some rackets. And
you're gonna bring 7-Eleven. You're gonna bring JC Penney. You're gonna bring the mall.
But I'll bring Target, but not Walmart because that's woke.
I think it's interesting though that this movie's kind of obviously like set in the modern era, which the class relations I think of Western movies. It seems like in every Western movie, everybody kind of owns a store. Like it's not just that there's like a middle class. Like they never show who's working at those stores besides the children of other people that might own stores or your own children. You know what I mean? Like this movie kind of falls into an interesting place because there's like a huge staff of bouncers for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And they're all working at this bar. And when you go places like it's not just, I mean, they have the auto place where it's just the one guy working there that owns it. And you're like, oh, that's another thing like with Westerns. Like that's the guy that owns the store. This guy owns a store. This guy owns a store. And they're all kind of just going to each other's stores because it's the only ones in town. But then this movie kind of seems connected to the modern era because Ben Gazzara's character obviously is bringing in the mall. He's bringing in JCPenney, like all of these things. People still have to work in those places. And he's kind of the last of one of these, it feels like kind of patronage people. They kind of like are like the town boss or whatever. And it feels like they're kind of defeating the last of these like relics of the Western era. Like, you know what I mean? Or like the like 1800s or something. Yeah. All the way in 1989. Like,
because too, like remember I was talking about Little House on the Prairie. That's kind of the cornerstone of the mythos of the Western in a way, of the whole everybody's either a yeoman farmer or petty bourgeois business owner.
Yeah.
And if you really think about the Little House books, they kind of were that way. There's a whole book where Paul runs a store. Most of the time he's petty bourgeois business owner, although he did work for the railroad in a couple of books and whatever. Those don't count.
Well, we all know that the people really making the money in this town, though, would have been people making the glassware and making the tables because they didn't last long around this place.
Oh, my God.
And the one doctor, Kelly Lynch.
The guy who makes...
The one super hot doctor, yes.
Which kind of has a perfect cue for me to bring up this this clip that I wanted to introduce. I don't know. I found this clip hilarious, and I cut two clips together. One of them is a Bill Murray clip where he's talking about... So I guess Bill Murray calls Kelly Lynch's husband every time Roadhouse is on TV and says like, I don't know, you can watch it and I'm not going to spoil it, but this is kind of one of the funniest clips I've pulled out for this.
Came
Rich Eisen
right before Drugstore Cowboy.
Okay.
Like literally I wrapped Roadhouse and went right into Drugstore Cowboy. It was like such a funny.
Were those in the movie theater at the same time?
Pretty much. Yeah.
So one minute you're in Gus Van Sant, another one.
Two completely different fan sets. Although I do have the ironic Roadhouse people who love Roadhouse for the, for the fun of it, that are also Drugstore Cowboy fans, but they're usually different groups of people.
Right.
But I like the crossover fans the best.
What was it like on the set of Roadhouse?
It was fantastic. I mean, it was one of the best times I've ever had. First of all, I mean, Sam Elliott and Patrick Swayze. Oh my God.
I've heard nothing like the Patrick Swayze, who's the nicest guy on planet Earth. Like the sweetest, nicest guy.
Everybody loved him. He was super funny. And how many guys are ballerinas and quarterbacks? Played football.
Because he was Mr. Dirty Dancing already by the time that he stepped on the set of Roadhouse.
He was. And just a really great athlete. And he kind of inspired me when I did Charlie's Angels. He did all of his own stunts, and Cameron Diaz and I did all of our stunts except for one drop from a bell tower that they wouldn't let us do. But we were like determined to do everything. And I watched Patrick work so carefully on all of his stunts and everything. And it made it fun. That part of the fun of the movie is knowing that that's Patrick fighting, Marshall Teague as well, as opposed to two stunt guys.
Sure. Kelly Lynch here on the Rich Eisen Show. And so it's on, Roadhouse is on probably right now.
It is on
somewhere
right now.
in Bucharest, right?
Somewhere in the world. Roadhouse is playing. Yes, everywhere, somewhere.
Is it true the Murray brothers call your husband every time it's on, or they see it every time it's on? Is that a true story?
That is a true story.
Can you explain the genesis of this story and how often it happens?
Well, it started with Bill Murray. I think Bill had never really seen Roadhouse all the way through and watched it one day years and years ago, and it came to the love scene. And basically what it was that upset him was that I was getting thrown against what looks like a very painful rock wall. And he thought it was hilarious. Exactly. That, and quite honestly, I did have quite a bit of padding behind me. I just want to tell that to the fans.
Yeah.
I did. No blood was shed. But yeah, I am kind of hitting that wall, and it does look painful. So he thought he should call my husband up, and he disguised his voice, which never works because you can tell it's Bill Murray. And he was like, Patrick Swayze is doing something with your wife on a rocky wall. You might want to turn your TV on. It was like, so we thought it was like a one-off. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then it came to a time where he was like in Russia. And so the time difference was a little upsetting in LA. He calls my husband to say again. And then all of a sudden his brothers started calling.
Like Brian Doyle, Mark?
Yeah. There's about 30,000 Murray brothers.
I was about to say.
And there's a nun. So far, she hasn't gotten involved, but I don't know if she has a TV.
So Bill Murray's sitting in Russia, turns his television on.
And there I am.
Roadhouse is on.
Roadhouse is on.
And he's still keeping this tradition going.
Yeah, he is. He's doing it. And in fact, I'm watching Anthony Bourdain, who I love. I'm watching his show, and he's in Charleston, and Bill Murray's on the show. And they talk about it on things. It's like, oh my God.
While eating like frog's legs or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Legend.
Holy shit.
Why does Bill Murray disguising his voice sound like Stone Cold Steve Austin?
Have you seen them in a room together?
You don't know me. Stone Cold Bill Murray.
So it sounds like Garfield.
Austin plays Garfield.
It sounds like Garfield is calling you in the middle of the night and going, "You don't know me."
Which is actually creepier. You don't know me, but I hate Mondays.
And your wife's on the wall.
I knew that this is the kind of shit that would happen on a Monday. Fuck it.
Oh, Kelly Lynch's husband was Mitch Glazer, who was a writer and I guess featured player in SNL and did Scrooge and a bunch of stuff. So seems like he's probably a pretty cool guy.
Yeah. Well, all right. So that makes perfect sense why Bill Murray would be friends with him.
There we go. Got to the bottom of that mystery. Cool.
But yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was...
Andy just pointed out was Billy Bob Thornton's cousin, which connects him to John Voight.
To bring it all back home to the planned bit at the beginning where we talk about right-wing Twitter people.
But yeah, I mean, so I don't know. I just thought that was a hilarious bit of random stuff that I found when I was trying to.
It is some sex scene though. I mean, it's sort of like what? Who? Okay, all right.
Bill Murray seems like he has a lot of bits like that running at any given time, but he must be very busy. He constantly has to be calling the Roadhouse people and doing the "they'll never believe you" thing and
washing the dishes. Yeah.
Party.
He's going up to Cubs games and just acting weird. He does a lot of that.
There's that one story where after coffee and cigarettes, he would go around and he would go with Wu-Tang Clan where to a bunch of tequila bars or just to bars in general, and he would start bartending at the bar with Wu-Tang Clan.
I have this story. I don't know why this wire didn't cross immediately and go Bill Murray bar. I fucking worked at the bar in Austin where he did this. He did this famously at South by Southwest, and I knew the guy who owned the bar. I worked for his other bar down the street, but we'd all hang out there at Shangri-La, and he went viral for going into this bar, just going behind the bar because no one will stop him because he's Bill Murray, and just making margaritas and handing them out and stuff. And everybody thought it was hilarious, and it was pretty popular, and it got people to go to the bar, I guess. But he didn't I knew the guy who owned the place, and he was furious because he didn't charge anyone anything because he didn't work there. He didn't run the register or anything. So
when you were in Gainesville, did anyone bring up Steve Martin's history there?
No.
I mean, he's not from there, but apparently he got his start there. They just loved him on the FSU campus and in the clubs around there. So he would do shit like take everyone out after, the whole audience out for tacos after the show and shit like that. He was that of Gainesville, Florida for a while when he was getting his start.
How do you have the money? How do you have the money to do that?
Gainesville's cheap, man. like I was doing Grubhub every day for like $5 with tip, practically. Like Gainesville is where to go.
I mean, there is something, maybe something to glean economically about this. If you want to make it in any of these weird businesses or petty bourgeois industries and shit, as I like the I'm sorry, reading this note at the bottom here. It helps if you have investment to start up. That's what this whole fucking movie is about. This guy has all this capital to front at this, to load, you know, the beginning, the startup process of this business, which is why he doesn't mind that he's like firing people and all this crazy shit is happening.
Well, is he at the start of the business, or is it just that he kind of came into some money and he's trying to clean up the business? Because it seems like at the beginning he's saying he's owned it for a while. None of it adds up anyway. But
like, bars and restaurants have like reboots like this all the time. I mean, you can consider this like a reattempt at getting the ball rolling. Honestly, the guy I was talking about, there's 3 guys that own all the bars on East 6th in Austin, Texas, and they're small business bar owners. They're kind of cool. They're also kind of small business dickheads. It's, you know, all like we were talking about earlier. It's just kind of all of it at the same time. One of them did the same thing. His grift was honestly brilliant, which is he hung out. Austin's a pretty small town. He hung out in bars for a long time when he was a bartender, and I guess he had inherited a bunch of money, and so he would tip like a maniac and just throw tons of money at like bartenders and stuff, and everyone loved him because he was just like, wow, this guy's just like really generous with his money, right? The plan the whole time was to start this bar called the Liberty, which is on East 6th Street. It's still there. It's very funny because East 6th Street's been gentrified to shit. So there's like,
I was just there for the first time in May and June.
If you go, one of the last shows we played in the before times, like at the end of February, was a venue on E6, actually now gone, and like it's gone now, but which is crazy. It was a COVID casualty, but I was astounded at how much it changed just since last time we had played there, because it was like, holy crap! And it was gentrified before.
I went and ended up going out to like the outskirts of Austin with David Griscom, like because he moved back out there, and I ended up like hanging out with him and just like listening to him rant for like almost 2 hours about how much he hates gentrification in Austin. It was like we were sitting there like having drinks. He's like, no, I got this. Anyway, they closed down this place.
It's insane. East 6 is like particularly like visually ridiculous. I opened the one of the bars on that street, and back then when it was like still, I mean, honestly, it wasn't really a great process to begin with because it was gentrification. Honestly, like hipsters out there like to pretend like, no, I'm from the east side. Like, sure, but still what's happening here was.
Did you start out in Austin originally, or?
I grew up in Houston. I started doing. I moved to Austin to go to college. I started doing stand up and working in the service industry there. And I basically got my start in the service industry on East 6. But to get all the way back to what I was talking about was Liberty. All right. So it's very funny because they used to be, the street was leveled as a poor neighborhood. The Liberty is literally like now high rise condo up to here, bar this tall, other high rise condo up to here. So it looks like a big fucking W or whatever, like because they won't sell the building. And it's insane. But the guy who started that, he did it by having a bunch of money to invest to begin with, by throwing all that money around at the bars and tipping until everyone was like, it's this fucking guy when he walks into the bar. Then when he opened his bar, he cashed in on all that like karma. You understand what I'm saying? And then his bar became like this huge service industry hangout. And it had this vibe to it where everyone's like, this guy's a great guy. But it's like, is he? He literally like purchased.
Curried favor.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Actively. Yeah.
So
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. That Steve Martin thing reminded me of that.
Like the big thing, I don't know if it's happening in other cities, but in Chicago, it's like anyone who like opened up a microbrewery maybe 10 years ago, they're all selling their shit like at the United Center. They have pop-ups in fancy neighborhoods. Like all these, like I only drink microbrew types. They're libertarians for a reason because they don't want to pay fucking taxes. And yeah, you see like these little taco joints, the white-owned taco joints, mind you, now becoming like big places in Wrigleyville right by the stadium, which looks like the suburbs now. So like, yeah, the small business owner is only a small business owner because they haven't become a big business owner yet.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked Jake the question about coming from Austin is it's interesting, because I was spent the first few years of my life in Brooklyn, and now I'm upstate, like an hour and a half from the city, but like still I've gone back and forth to Brooklyn a lot. I went to Austin for the first time back in May during COVID and everything, but like COVID was kind of dying down and nobody in Texas gave a fuck. And I felt like they had taken the same aesthetic in a lot of places, like East Sticks, like all these places in Austin. You kind of took the Brooklyn aesthetic and kind of created a playground in parts of Austin for people from Brooklyn originally. So it was like interesting to make that jump. And I was wondering, since you live in Brooklyn kind of now, like, do you kind of sense that too?
Yeah. Yeah, there's 100% like a pipeline. Like when I moved from Austin here, I just came to the neighborhood that I knew all of the bartenders and stuff who used to work in Austin. Like there's just an exchange program. And honestly, like one of the first businesses I worked at, the East Side showroom, which is now closed, was literally like they opened it in Brooklyn, and then their whole business thing when they came to Austin, the way they advertised it was like famous cocktail restaurant from Brooklyn, from world famous Brooklyn. Like it was this huge deal to try to basically export all of this stuff that was born in Brooklyn that we all take for granted now. Like it's enough time has passed, you kind of think, oh, you gotta go get a cocktail anywhere, right? But it used to be like all this like weird local sourced fine dining, but a restaurant where you can get cocktails but your waiter has tattoos and stuff. That was like an idea that was born in Brooklyn, and then people made a fucking killing by just going to any other city and going copy paste, which is what it is. Like people in the bar industry often would kind of shit on like, oh, this is like, like people would copy their cocktail programs, like their menus, from other restaurants in other cities, which is inauthentic if you're into the artistry of creating cocktails, which is something that I personally kind of appreciate. But it's not like, I mean, this is just business. Who gives a shit, that stuff? I mean, it spread like wildfire. That's exactly what all that stuff is there. And now it's everywhere, and it's very like inauthentic, but it's like screaming at you the entire time you're in a bar like this, like, I am authentic. There's this new thing where people like bulldoze a building and then rebuild it, and then hire someone to come in and make the wood look old and stuff, and like make it look like a roadhouse bar. And to answer your question in the chat, Liberty Lunch was downtown. East Austin used to be, up until about 15 years ago, white people were afraid to go there, so it was just the black and brown part of Austin. And then gentrification and etc. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
what you're saying is capitalism doesn't breed innovation.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly.
So I live in New Paltz, which is 90 minutes from the city. Everybody, everyone in this area was originally from the city. Like not that many people are literally from this area of the Hudson Valley, because it's literally just like you travel up here, and even like here we get like the lazy gentrifiers, which New Paltz can't be gentrified, but like still we get people from Brooklyn every once in a while, and they're like, here's a business that started out in Brooklyn, and it's like, yeah, I could travel fucking an hour and a half and just be there. I could take a bus there. Like why do I like, so every new business that opens up, like a bunch of them, they'll be like, this is our version of like a Brooklyn restaurant that exists. And it's like, okay.
Oh, you're going to serve me my food on a rectangle piece of wood instead of a plate? Wow, you can't do that at home? Incredible.
It's funny, like, when people talk about Bushwick being, like, bougie and everything, because my first introduction was Bushwick Bill from Ghetto Boys. So I always thought, Bushwick was a rough place. And now it's known for being, like, bougie. It's weird.
East Austin, same story, man. I mean, people used to be afraid to go. It's insane because Texas is I don't know how we got off of Roadhouse and now we're talking about this.
Texas Roadhouse.
But yeah, there you go. But like it used to be gentrified straight down the middle by I-35, and like literally there was graffiti in the 70s. Professor I had at UT talked about this. There's a big fucking thing spray painted on the side of the bridge if you were going under I-35 to go to East Austin. It said like, you are exiting the American dream and entering East Austin. It was fucking hardcore. And then things just changed, and a white person was like, oh, the rent's cheap over here, I could start a bar, and we could go in circles all day arguing about the morality of that, when the problem is the big under.
Well, I mean, the newer thing I noticed in Austin, and I talked to people that were there, is like the Airbnbs. Like people just buy up like fucking developments and be like, listen, these are all Airbnbs now, which is the most immoral possible way, because it's already immoral to be a landlord, obviously. Like to own a property, like obviously you can own one property and like, you know, subsidize the 2 properties or whatever, and you have to still do other work. But like already, like being a real estate developer is highly unethical, I think, in general, because you're buying up like, you know, houses that could be used for other people. But to do that as an Airbnb and not even have like a tenant, like you're not even offering it to tenants. Now you're offering it to people that are just gonna be there for a week and like trash it. It's like, I mean,
this stuff is terrible and it's ravaging, especially Austin. I mean, Austin might be the most fucked city in the country right now, just in terms of like the extent that all this stuff is happening to it. But I think it's also advantageous, probably for the people that are doing all this shit and the class of people that are doing all this shit, to kind of like continue the narrative that these are like individual personal failings on people, even when you're talking about realtors and stuff, and not just like, because that gets you away from like, no, wait, we need laws, you know, that like stop this just from happening. I mean, you can imagine evil landlords all day, but like if you, it's an inevitability in the market. Like if you stop one person from doing this, another person will show up and go, oh, I'm the person that does a evil.
But if you have renters' rights and things like, you know, rent control and basic standards, then it's going to filter out some of the quote unquote evilness from people that are acting in self-interest. And
well, no, I mean, it's the thing
unfortunately, I almost got a point in. All right, go ahead.
All right, no. Say, you made me think of something, but never mind.
I was just gonna say, if we were able to reframe the debate to be that way rather than like all landlords suck. Yeah, all landlords do suck, but really needs to be about empowering the people that to think about things like renters' rights as just that, rights. That's what I was getting at.
That's a good point.
I know it was gonna be a long time.
But it's kind of the same thing as I feel this way about like you know, Republicans in office a lot of times. Like there'll be someone that's just so terrible that they kind of get booted out. And everyone's like, wow, we finally got the one person out. It's the same way with like slumlords. You know what I mean? Like you push, like all of a sudden someone's just like the worst slumlord in town. And people all of a sudden now feel kind of complacent because they've pushed out, like that slumlord's kind of gone further than anybody else. And it's like the conversation about systemic issues gets distracted by that.
Well, you know what can solve these systemic issues is if we hire the best cooler in the entire country to come in and beat the shit out of them with his ballerina moves.
Has anyone ever actually heard of a cooler as like a job title? Like, did they kind of semi-invent this for this?
Oh no, it's a real thing. It's a real thing, but it's used more often for gambling. Like for you want to like if someone's on a hot streak or something along those lines. In fact, I think then they make like is there a movie called The Cooler that's like I want to say it's either William H. Macy or the dude that looks just like William H. Macy. I can't remember which one it is.
Well,
but Maria Bello and so on. Like
a cooler in a casino, is. But I think it's a different, using the same term for an entirely different thing.
It's a different kind of job.
If
there are real things, go ahead.
If you're in a casino and you're like at a poker table, for example, that the casino like is allowed to hire someone who works for them to sit at the table, read everyone, and purposely fuck shit up so that you lose hands and stuff like that. To the extent that I think they got sued over this. Last time I was gambling, which was actually a few months ago in Vegas, they had to put a thing up that says you're allowed at any time to just ask, like, is there a cooler here? And they have to tell you, which is crazy. That
are you a cooler? Because if you're a cooler, you have to tell me.
Yeah,
isn't that the cop law? Exactly. You have to tell me if you're a cop
or a cooler, or
it's crazy. But in Roadhouse, the cooler is like a manager of bouncers. They're very confused in this movie about what
security.
He's a bar. Like they hired him to manage this bar.
Right? Yeah.
Well, that's because this movie's actually about
it's basically bar manager, but also bouncer.
I mean, I work for GTAA, so I'm an expert on this. You know, closely I've worked with Ben Burgess and many
I was originally the GTA cooler. I was managing the fucking show, like the show, whatever, like whatever, segment by segment. I could have been the cooler
until they hired Patrick Swayze and he got rid of you.
Yeah, exactly.
But they needed Patrick Swayze though for the fight between Ben Burgess and Charlie Kirk there. They just had this corpse just sitting there in the corner of the room for no reason, and that kept things cool.
Are you sure that wasn't Patrick Swayze?
All right.
They need the cleaner
as Ghost. He was actually in Whoopi Goldberg's body at the time, banging Demi Moore.
There you go.
Yeah, so this is kind of part of Patrick Swayze's impressive run of doing a whole bunch of movies like in a very short amount of time. Which, listening to him talk in different interviews, like he always seems like his time is really short, and I think it's because he was a dancer and then kind of like an action star, and like that has an expiration date. But then you realize like Patrick Swayze literally had an expiration date. Like, you know what I mean? Like he died so fucking young.
I mean, it's not just that. Like Patrick Swayze had this moment, but then all of a sudden you have the new action hero with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal kind of ushering in this kind of new era. And Patrick Swayze, with this movie in particular, is very much like this could have been a Stallone or a Schwarzenegger film. This is very much out of that kind of action movie zeitgeist, and because he never quite, I don't know, he just kind of disappeared. Yeah, like right around that time.
Is he the one that was drunk with the burger in that viral video?
No, that was
David Hasselhoff.
Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh
no, yeah, that was David Hasselhoff with the burger. I thought you meant
Sutherland.
Kiefer Sutherland was with the Christmas tree.
No, that was a Christmas tree. Sorry, that's where my mind. Yeah, no, that was Hasselhoff at the burger, and his daughter was.
You featured it on our horror night wrap up.
I know. I heard drunk with the video, and then I automatically
the punchline.
That one.
Germans love David Hasselhoff.
No, David Hasselhoff was drunk with a burger, and his daughter was feeling like she wanted to show him that his alcoholism had gotten really bad, and filmed him trying to eat the burger off the floor.
Right.
That burger looked good.
It did.
It looked like a big.
That's the takeaway.
2 seconds.
Can you blame him?
I wanted to get Conan's opinion on this. I have a so Jeff Healey is the guy that was the singer in this, or the guitar player and singer in this that was had like a supporting star, like a supporting role of the kind of person that would have been, which I guess they wrote a blind guitar player and then found one, which is weird that they kind of wrote it from the start. But
there's also a lap steel, if I remember correctly.
But it's interesting because I feel like every time, one of the most I guess inaccurate or weird things about this movie is that everybody knows him as a bouncer that's been like a famous bouncer, which is not a thing that ever exists. Like, who the fuck goes, oh, we've heard about you from this place, which is why it connects to Western movies, obviously, like, famous sheriffs. Like in Texas, there's like the most famous Texas Rangers, there's the sheriffs, which would make sense. But in this, it's like, oh, we've heard about your bouncer exploits, which no one's ever heard about from anything. That's not
the only famous bouncer is Blade from last night on Twitter. Did everybody miss this?
It's like sure. It's like Patrick Swayze is the Bass Reeves of bouncing. It's like he's the white Bass Reeves.
But then they also heard about
I'm describing the Lone Ranger.
Let's just say Michael Jordan. I get that reference.
They also heard about like Wade, like, you know what I mean? Like, so they've heard about Wade and him. So there's two famous bouncers that everybody's heard of.
Yeah. Wade
he comes in, they're like, wow, Wade Garrett, everybody. Like, so I don't know. So this is the Jeff Healey interview that they did right before the movie came out, and I wanted to get Conan's opinion on the music.
Wondered, why is it that men go to bars, and get away from their wife and kids or whatever, and go to bars, and if the stuff doesn't break out, if fights don't break out by midnight, they start fighting between themselves because there's something in their inside they have to release. I think I decided that I wanted to do Dalton and Roadhouse. Well, number one, I love the premise. It's like a modern day Western, and who would care about the life of a bouncer in the first place? But the twist was a bouncer with a degree in philosophy. We just lucked out finding Jeff Healey and being a blind guitar player, plus finding a Jeff Healey with a great deal of talent.
the script called for a young blind guitar player in a blues rock band who played flat on his lap, and so we were quite amazed. And after some investigation, found out it wasn't, as purely coincidental as it seemed. Because the writer for the book was from Toronto and had seen the band a couple of times. So, sort of what goes around comes around. It worked out very nicely.
The guy's been working his brains out in Canada for his whole life. Now, all of a sudden, his career, I mean, even before Roadhouse has come out, so, he's like passing the test. It's not just because of a movie that this guy's music is happening, it's because of him as an artist.
I think all three of us really are going to have a hard time believing that we did it until we walk into the movie theater and see it.
Thanks, man. So you played pretty good for a blind white boy.
Yeah, and I thought you'd be bigger.
It's so amazing that like the blind guy recognizes Patrick Swayze immediately by voice in a loud and noisy bar. That's so amazing to me. I love it.
I hear my friend.
Yeah, exactly. But so this kind of ties into last episode that we did with Chris Murphy from Sloan for the Scott Pilgrim about him being the guy that basically made these non-musicians look like they know how to play their instruments, right? In this case, like having a band leader not only that does know how to play, but knows how to play that style of music pretty well, let alone in like kind of a weird and idiosyncratic way, that makes it for a better film. Like you wouldn't believe that everyone's, let's fight, them's fighting words in this Roadhouse, if not for this blues rock going. There has to be some, kind of like, but and Andrew, it's not a slide guitar. He actually just learned to play with it flat. Like that's just how he learned to play, which is kind of interesting too. But that was actually really good for his career.
I've seen a lot of folk shows. Like I used to go to bluegrass festivals and hang out with the punk midgets. I don't know how this always happened. But there was a I just remember like a lot of these bluegrass people with like these big steel guitars played on their laps.
Lap steel. It's a different instrument.
Okay.
It's a completely different instrument. It's way more expensive. And I could get into the vagaries of why. It's not really what this show is, but basically what he does by playing guitar, slide guitar, laying down, it's similar-ish to a lap steel, but it's not the same thing. It's a slightly different range, it's different intonation. There's a major difference in price tag. But that said, like this dude is like well respected before this, and this kind of like Roadhouse actually like put him onto a next level to a certain degree for, I don't know, the shitty Roadhouses in Missouri of the world. But like he has had a pretty legit career. Also, if I remember, I think he's Canadian. I think he's a Canadian dude, which I think is doubly hilarious.
Well, they said he's from Toronto.
Yeah.
In this. But yeah, I don't know. So I thought that was interesting that he's kind of like live music playing throughout this movie. You know what I mean? Like it's like they went deeper than they would have. I feel like than they should have even. not saying that.
Well, they give him a lot of airtime because he's good on the screen, right? And like because he's almost a character actor without being.
Yeah, no, I'm saying like doing the amount of research that it takes to actually get like a live band to be in this movie. I feel like it's almost more more research than I would have assumed that they would have done, or more of an authentic thing that they would have assumed that they would have done.
Yeah,
it's definitely cooler.
And again,
it's cooler than if they had depicted this bar more accurately, which if you've ever been to bars like this, it's like
sad ass jukebox.
It's a jukebox playing like I've Got Friends in Low Places over and over and over again, and Achy Breaky Heart and shit, and like bad karaoke happening.
Yeah. So I guess a last
3 times is dirty.
Yeah.
So before I go to final thoughts for everybody, because I told Conan that we could watch the This Is Revolutions having Sam Cedar on. So I think I'm thinking about, I don't know if you're down for this, Conan, but I was thinking about watching it live on a Twitch stream after this, and like just starting another Twitch stream if you wanted to do that. But I wanted to do the letterbox things because I think that's always like one of the most fun
absolutely
that we do. So I have it right here. Let us begin. Oh, well, to explain it to Kenzo and Jake, I guess.
Yeah.
We've been doing this segment. We've been doing this segment where Conan finds one sentence reviews from Letterboxd. You guys both know Letterboxd, right? Like it's the you go in and you So Conan's been finding one sentence reviews, like the pithy ones or the like the funny ones, and he goes through a bunch of them that he's found, and we kind of rate them or comment on them. But all right,
start the ones I like the best, the ones that make me laugh, whatever, ones I think might be good on the show. There you go. This is the bit. Letterboxd, a place for film. All right. As someone who lives in Missouri, this happens way too often. That's Nathan Jones. Everybody.
That's this whole movie, or just like that's hilariously vague.
I mean, you see this a lot. It's very funny, but there's a funny thing you could do on Letterboxd with almost any movie, which is just go, same thing happened to me.
It's almost a running bit. Yeah, you're right. But
that's funny.
It works for me, especially for this one. Let's put it that way.
I saw somebody do that on Malignant a while back. It made me laugh really hard.
The more absurdist the movie, the better that line is.
All right, now we're going to the next one.
Shit Kicker Yojimbo by Jake Eisger, everybody.
Well, only one
harkens
star.
Back to what y'all were talking about earlier.
He's wrong.
No stars, just a heart.
You can really do it with no stars. They always
some
try
people
to get
don't
you to rate
review.
it.
Some people don't.
Yeah.
That's how you know that person's trying.
Some
to
people
start.
don't actually like rating.
I don't like rating. I just assume
so that's not me. That's I kind of feel so too. But some people like are no. I took the blue pill on this one. Okay, whatever. Nobody cares.
No, I on the floor.
That's
I found
the
a blue
reviewer,
pill.
not me.
On the floor, I found a blue pill. I took it, and
Oh, Viagra?
That got weird. This movie was sponsored by Big Knife. Knives have never looked cooler.
Man,
Betty Squires.
I was thinking about this when I was watching this. I made a note of it. There are so many knives in this movie. It's set in a reality where maybe this is just I'm not from Missouri or something, or from the country really, but everyone you had to assume in any fight someone was going to bust out a knife, and they might have it in the toe of their shoe also. Very cool. And then that kind of dropped off and it went to fists, and then the climax, third act of the movie, guns. So things were
I feel like you can't have guns the whole time, right? Like someone could just kind of pat you down and be like, yo, don't come in here, you have a gun. And then like it's kind of an impasse. I feel like knives are kind of the middle ground. As they found out in the UK, when not that many people have guns, all of a sudden the knives start coming out. It's like they have to, because what are they gonna do? They're gonna do the sheriff thing, the Western thing where everyone has a gun at their holster and then everyone's just kind of pointing guns at each other in a bar. Like the knives made it far more interesting.
Yeah, it could have been like, I'm the cooler. Bang, now you're dead. That would have been the movie.
Exactly.
I'm the cooler, and I got
10-minute movie.
The first gun that came out, a guy had it like in his ankle so that he could sneak it past. This all tracks. This makes sense.
Today, install a microwave and watch this glorified episode of Bar Rescue like the adult woman that I am. Joe March.
That's unfair. I watch a lot of Bar Rescue, and except for the part where they caught the guy pocketing the money. This is not Bar Rescue.
Well, I mean, kind of technically it is because the guy is trying to save his bar.
It's rehabbing it through the whole time. I mean, they took down the chicken wire from in front of the stage. They put up those nice neon lights. They painted the walls, and like you see it happening in stages. It really is Bar Rescue.
I think I agree with Joe March here, because like one of the it's very subtle. At one point, he just shows up and they're all wearing uniforms. This is where I kind of stopped liking him, as it seemed like that was his idea. Like, we're all gonna wear khaki pants and red shirts, and that fucking sucks, dude.
EMC shit.
The bar rescue dude does that stuff all the time too. He always
the bar that I worked at as a bouncer, everyone had to wear a red staff shirt, and I wonder if it's taken from. It was like a staff shirt that said the name of the bar and like whatever information on it. But like, I wonder if that's taken from Roadhouse.
Maybe.
Why no one ever told me?
Target.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. It's a Target uniform.
Why no one ever told me middle-aged Sam Elliott looked like some hot country version of Jesus Christ?
Which, by the way, a lot like, so you can make a joke with a lot like, the people that come into Target. It's like, middle-aged like cougars like coming in to fucking harass you at work. Like the same thing with, wearing a red staff shirt.
Yeah. And wait, so is Sam Elliott the cougar here? We have no time. Moving on.
I lost the path on that one. But
No,
okay.
nothing. No, I was talking about the red staff shirts and the Target thing, not that actual, not the review. Never mind.
Honestly, Sam Elliott, though, at this age in this movie, very hot man, very cool guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely
Not in this specific part that I grabbed. But...
Those are not.
I don't know about y'all, but this movie is my Thanksgiving tradition. That's Adam loves bad movies.
I mean, it's a lot of people grab Die Hard for that too, right? Like that's another kind of 80s movies that people watch on Thanksgiving a lot of times.
I thought that was a Christmas movie. That was the whole thing.
It is too.
It marks the beginning of the Christmas season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Damn, even the director's name is Rowdy. Even the director's name is Rowdy. There we go. That's better. That's Harris Meyerson.
Yeah, I feel like they put the emphasis on the wrong, because I feel like it's even the director's name is like, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I fucked that up. But...
Yeah, even the director's name is Rowdy. Is that?
Oh, I see what they did there.
Yeah.
I see you found my trophy room, Dalton. The only thing it's missing is your ass.
Is your ass. He delivered that line so well. I wrote that down on a piece of paper.
The Arboleta is that.
This is the straightest movie I've ever seen. Like, it's so hetero.
It's like the Top Gun thing where what's his name? Ice is like.
It's very Top Gun-ish. There's very few women in this movie. There's one black guy, I think. The entire film is pretty much everyone is a white dude, and they're all very angry and probably turned on at the same time.
Well, I mean,
and then there's a really beautiful doctor, very beautiful female doctor in the small town.
Yeah. She's great, but she's like the entire Well, actually, okay, there's women, but they're like these bizarre props.
The one thing Gazar is abusing? Yeah.
There's drug dealer woman. There's the one that comes in when that works at the bar that's apparently good at singing, but also kind of weird that he's not trying to fuck. There's the doctor. There's it's like three women.
There's like slutty lady who takes off her clothes for no reason on stage.
Yeah, I would watch an entire spin-off sitcom about the server that's also sings in the band sometimes.
Thank you, because I was gonna we pivoted away from the music thing almost immediately into more nonsense, and like I found that scene, which I never paid attention to, maybe the first 5 times I saw it, is like, oh, she just like, why? Okay, because that scene doesn't really need to be there. But like, I wonder if it's just like she really wanted to do it, and like Rowdy was like, "Yeah, go on, girly." That's how I assume this guy talks.
Let me sing. I'm so good at singing.
Oh man,
so good.
No, she has a heart of gold, and she doesn't even understand that she could do something better than be a server. I love her.
Yeah,
she's like
it's a cool scene, but I just. And for a movie that makes so many puzzling decisions about so many puzzling things, that is one that I kind of fixated on last time. I'm like, that's trippy that like they never picked that up as an arc or anything. It's just like a thing that happens.
I bet the original cut of Roadhouse is like 9 hours long, and they had to cut out all this shit.
I think her entire character arc ended before Sam Elliott even was on screen.
Yeah,
2 movies.
Roadhouse should be a trilogy. There should be 3 Roadhouses.
There's a second.
Jeff King died?
I
didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know he died either.
We didn't see it coming. Too soon. Sorry.
Oh, God.
Come on.
Please, we're talking about Roadhouse. Please.
Too soon, Andrew. Come on.
All right. Well, starting with Jake, we're gonna go through these final thoughts. Final thought on this, or some meditation on philosophy. But,
oh man, I mean that's a ridiculous question, but it's kind of not though. I mean this movie is kind of it's film, man. I think you were right with the Western thing, and it's got something going on, and he's trying to say something with his philosophy, yada yada yada. It's about Western liberalism, and it's one of the last movies that, movies that embody that sort of stuff, like, get more and more ridiculous over the span of the history of film, because the American dream is absurd and starts to look dumber and dumber in contrast with the reality that we live in, right? Old Westerns are like at the beginning of everything, and they're kind of mythologizing like this is going to work. And now to retell this individualistic nature of much of a story, it gets dumber and dumber and dumber until it's.
Well, it kind of feels like it's at the end of something too, right? Like the Ben Gazzara, political boss or town boss villain kind of feels like he's at the end of this long cycle of towns kind of being controlled by people like this. And he's like, he brings in JCPenney, and he's like, he's connected to this era of like, the late 80s. But at the same time, like, it feels like he's kind of the last one of those. Like, he's a ridiculous person. He's like swerving around in his car. He's like singing fucking shaboom da da da, the shit from Clue. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's kind of feels like he's fucking a ridiculous caricature almost. He's like almost nice at some weird points. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I'm always confused by these movies because I'm like, why was the 80s producing nothing but movies that were hyper aware of the evils of like high level corporate capitalism, and yet at the same time everyone was voting for Ronald Reagan and shit, and like all of society was seemingly in opposition to this message that they were trying to send. To me, it's like okay, Hollywood isn't everyone, so it's just one voice. It's not like America made this movie, Hollywood made this movie, but also like it's feckless. Like, it's like this is a story that makes you feel good, but everyone that watched Roadhouse didn't also go out and do class war after this and try to change the world. We just sort of watched it, and it's a story we tell ourselves that sort of like numbs the pain as everyone slides into the incinerator of the end of the millennium, right? So but that's fine, because that's all movies are supposed to be. To me, that's where my galaxy brain went when I watched it, but it's also kind of fun. It's fun also, even nihilistically, to watch a film like this. It just, the other thing kind of unrelated that's not that deep that I just wanted to say about this movie, incredible dialogue. Nothing but zingers that are very funny, that are the types of shit you might even say drunk to your friend in a bar about, like, that woman's how's she got so much brains to have that much ass, or whatever the fuck Sam Elliott says. Hilarious. I love it. That's why I think it's a classic movie.
I like my favorite back and forth in the movie is and maybe it's because I'm a little more intellectual on this. No, but like, I like when he walks in, he's like, are you an honest man or something? And he's like, yes, I am. And he was like, you think I should believe you? That's my favorite back and forth in the whole movie, because it's just like, okay, sure. This
Got me.
He also drops that one line where he's like, the money will put me back in the good graces of the church. And he's like, funny how money always seems to do that. And it's like, this guy is a little bit too, I don't know. This is like a character that's like purposely giving out like these wise, self-aware Western.
The wise farmer, great character, and he represented all this stuff in the grand, story here. But it kind of reminded me of like Barfly or something, where like almost every line of dialogue has like these really great, like, no one actually talks like that, but but there's a reason. Especially a lot of those lines, I think, are why this exists in the zeitgeist of like bar workers. Like forever in bars, people will be saying, these ridiculous things to each other about I fucking wish I could pull one up right now. I wrote a bunch. The one I wrote down was the one that's missing is your ass. But point being, that I think that stylization helps it continue into like posterity or whatever. Great film, fucking rules. 10 stars.
All right, Kenzo, let's hear it.
Well, first I want to say pain don't hurt.
Yeah, baby.
Commitment to the bit. Yeah.
I first came up with the idea of having this tattoo when I was in this full-time psych program where it's dialectical behavior therapy, where like you discover things that trigger you from past traumas, but instead of like saying, "Oh, you triggered me," you're whateverist, you figure out ways to work your way through it so you can live your life. And when I was in one of my group sessions, I brought up this movie. I'm like, pain don't hurt. Like, we go through a lot of pain, but we could figure out ways to make it not hurt, and like kind of use the skills that we got from past bullshit that happened to us. But going back to the film, I don't have much deep to say about it, but I really wish there were films like this made again, where it's ridiculous and hyper self-aware. But what we have now are things like Sharknado, Snakes on a Plane, where it's just so over the top and ridiculous. It's not even
the wrong kind of self-aware, like the self-aware that it's a piece of shit and therefore decides to be a piece of shit, which
we've gotten too self-aware. I mean, in some sense, we've gotten too self-aware, right? Like things are in conversation with other things that are in conversation with other things, and it's like it's gone too far at this point. Like, because
self-awareness has become self-aware.
Yeah, well, I think look it up. Yeah, no, go ahead, Jake. Sorry.
I'd say Fast and Furious is like the modern thing that's kind of walking this line. But you're right; it's like in short supply.
But like we could use more films like it, not just sequels to that one. Like, and because I love that shit. Like medium budget, but good acting, good set design, shit like that. So like they actually put some care into the film, and like the dialogue is good. Like I feel like we're really missing that. Either you have something that's ridiculously over the top or a Marvel movie, and I miss kind of the.
Wait, those things are mutually exclusive.
Wait, well, the Marvel movies are just not. I mean, maybe I haven't seen enough of them. They don't seem very self-aware. It's like,
well, there's no middle class for filmmaking. Is I think what you're trying to say.
Well, no, there is, I think, though, and it gets put on streaming. It gets put on streaming sites. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where we're at with that. Which the budgets are not as
But with the level of cultural ubiquity that like Roadhouse has and continues to have, no. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, that fell out.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's my final thought. Like, bring back this shit. The time has come. Put them in movie theaters, not just on streaming services. And then put all the Marvel movie people into gulags. My final.
And have it on Kenzo's desk by Monday morning.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Conan.
Wow, that's gonna say big knife,
3-inch. Yeah, this would not make it into Roadhouse.
I was gonna say it's got to be a perspective thing. You let Andy get the final word? Okay, whatever, that's fine. Look, I have a tendency to wax poetic and get sort of long-winded on these kinds of things. Sure. I just think this movie kicks ass. Honestly, like there's very few movies I can say that. It's badass in almost every way and completely absurd at the same time. I consider this a highly watchable film, meaning there's plenty of films like I love Come and See. I love Requiem for a Dream, but watching those is a freaking drag, man, because they're meant to like break your soul, and they're great films in the fact that they achieve that goal. But Roadhouse is awesome, man. It's just an awesome film. It's preposterous, but it's also badass, and that's a fine type of movie, and I think we should have more of those for sure.
All right, Andy.
I find it fascinating that way this movie never lingers on the female form, but it's always on Patrick Swayze's perfectly oiled body the entire time. It's really strange that the movie with this much nudity would just spend so much time on Patrick Swayze's body.
I liked seeing Patrick Swayze's ass after seeing so much of Kyle MacLachlan's ass or whatever, and McLaughlin, after every fucking David Lynch movie that we watched recently, and Showgirls. You see fucking Kyle MacLachlan's ass in every single fucking movie that we've watched. I feel like in the last month, and finally Patrick, finally some delicious fucking food.
You also see Sam Elliott's pubes in this movie,
which was surprising.
Yeah, it was pretty jarring.
It's almost like it has this female gaze of the film, which always reminds me of whenever I saw Universal Soldier in the theater, and the woman in front of me would have to fan herself every single time, like Van Damme would strip down, and that air conditioning scene, she lost it. She was just, oh my god!
Thank goodness we barred all female type people from being on this episode.
Yeah, I just found that that's the one like fascinating thing about this movie, which means like unlike most action films, it actually has a large female fan base. There are plenty of women that actually really enjoyed this movie, and I think partly because it's almost like it's a movie for men, but made with the woman's gaze, almost, I guess you could say. Which makes this movie even more fascinating whenever you think about it that way. Secondly, I just want to be serious for one quick second here. It's today is Eric Treston's birthday. He committed suicide 2 years ago, and I only found out about his passing this past summer. So I just want to say, in honor of Eric Treston, if you're having a tough time, reach out to somebody. We're all here for you.
All right. Well, that's a great note to end on. Thanks for all being on here. It was good to talk about this. It's interesting that we're gonna do a part 2 because I feel like we said so much in this one, but I'll definitely come up with.
We'll bring on the women.
I was gonna say there's only X chromosomes on this one though, so yeah.
I feel like it wasn't female gaze. I feel like it was gay man's gaze. When you have a lot of male nudity like that, like it's still male objectification and stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe this is for someone else to discuss.
The original title for Brokeback Mountain was Cowboy Gaze.
Is it really?
All right.
So, I'm so gullible.
Right before
that sounds like a good band name, though. There you go.
Right before we jump to the end of this, I should plug that tomorrow we're doing Blue Velvet. Speaking of Kyle MacLachlan and speaking of David Lynch, Anna Kasparian is going to be on. I'm really excited for that. That's going to be a huge guest. But thank you everyone for
Thursday is
talking about
Dune,
Roadhouse.
right?
Thursday's Dune, and then Saturday's this again. Really going all in with the streaming, and then Friday, I think Jake's going to be there too. Cole James Cash is having his show in Brooklyn with Jamie Peck and him DJing, which should be a very interesting thing to witness, and I'm excited to witness that. But also I haven't left my house much lately, so that I'm excited to witness really anything. But there we go.
Take it with a grain of salt, I guess. I don't know.